Last night, Novo Nordisk reported their earnings for 2025 along with their 2026 earnings outlook. As a result, the market is participating in a collective vomiting session, sending the stock down about 19% on the day. The market is in no way happy with these results. People who follow me on my channel would know that Novo Nordisk is my biggest position. It's the biggest position in my portfolio in terms of money allocation, and it's the biggest position in terms of sizing, being a 20% position today. So as you can see, I own Novo Nordisk and I'm down by more than 40%, which is why thesis work and a grasp on value creation processes is so important as an investor. Today I'm going to cover Novo Nordisk earnings, explaining why I'm still positive on the company. We're going to cover the earnings, what went wrong and what I liked, and I'll take you through the earnings using my framework of measuring Novo Nordisk value creation processes. First, I'm going to look at how they increase production capacity. Second, I'm going to look at them expanding the obesity market. And finally, we're going to take a look at them executing on their pipeline. So these are three tangible, measurable ways of measuring Novo Nordisk value creation processes. The earnings Novo Nordisk posted last night actually looked fine on the surface, with them seeing their sales increasing by 10% measured at constant exchange rates, with operating profits having grown 13% at constant exchange rates if they had not done these company-wide restructuring costs, but measuring these company-wide restructuring costs that are one-time, decreasing their operating profit by 1%. So on the surface, this old report actually looks like Novo Nordisk still being a machine that turns, all the while doing it slower than it has done previously. Their growth rates are decelerating, right? The company grew its obesity care sales by 31% in 2025, growing US operations by 15%, international operations by 73%. So on the surface, it looks like the machinery is still going, and although we see a huge deceleration in terms of their growth when measuring it at constant exchange rates, going from 25.7% in 2024 to 10% in 2025. The issue is their guidance for 2026, saying that adjusted sales growth for 2026 is expected to be -5 to -13%, with negative growth rates being higher than expected. So this is what sent the stock down to such a degree. The decrease in the guidance is based on sales decline within US operations, citing competition and price declines as short-term headwinds for the company. So we see the challenges that troubled Novo Nordisk throughout 2025 continuing into 2026, and Mike Dustar said that these are short-term headwinds, so prices and competition within the United States leads to a sales decline. The company are lowering their prices on their offerings. Here they say market expansion is assumed to continue, enabling Novo Nordisk to increase patient reach and expand volumes. This is countered by lower realized prices. So this is what drives the Novo Nordisk headwinds for the moment: lower realized prices on Wegovy and on Ozempic. Now, with a lower overall guidance based on decreased prices and increasing competition intensity, we still have huge silver linings with this report, and I see great positives with this report. I think that if you follow the three value creation processes for Novo Nordisk, all three things are ticking in the right direction. This year and 2025 were huge hiccups with changes in the competitive landscapes and in the pricing landscapes. But overall, the things that drive the value creation for Novo Nordisk are still heading in the right direction, and that's what I'm going to take you throughout this video. But for now, I'm going to play you a clip of CEO Mike Dustar explaining the positive things ahead, so what lies beyond the short-term headwinds that we have just discussed.
We face a challenging year, but here's the opportunity. There will soon be 2 billion people globally living with obesity, overweight, or diabetes, and our ambition is to serve as many of these people as possible. Our strategy is to drive market expansion, and that strategy is right on track. Lower prices and innovative treatments will open up new patient segments, which is key to unlocking volume over a longer period of time, particularly in obesity, which is evolving into a more consumer-led mass market. And here's why I'm confident we will succeed. It might be only a few weeks, but we have already shown we can execute one of the most successful pharma launches ever. With over 100,000 American patients already choosing our oral GLP-1 pill, we have a broad and deep pipeline to serve diverse patient priorities, and we are showing good momentum with some key data readouts and potential approvals in 2026.
So the diabetes and the obesity markets are growing by the day, and so is Novo Nordisk's total addressable market. In January, Novo Nordisk offered their Wegovy pill, which is one of the most successful pharma launches of all time. This leads me into the first part of Novo Nordisk long-term value creation processes, which is them expanding their production capacity. So we can see the developments from 2024 to 2025, Novo Nordisk investing heavily in terms of capital expenditures, guiding for 55 billion in capital expenditures for 2026. So this is reflecting the expansion of their global supply chains. They say here the investments will create additional capacity and flexibility across the supply chain, including the manufacturing of active pharmaceutical ingredients, additional aseptic production and finished production processes, as well as packaging capacity. So we're still seeing Novo Nordisk spending large amounts of money on capital expenditures, on improving their production facility, on improving all these things that lead to Novo Nordisk being able to actually meet the demand that the market has, right? So Novo Nordisk incredibly successful Wegovy pill launch is based on these investments into their supply chain, right? 150,000 patients plus within 4 weeks is insane, and it is a high number of people, and they couldn't have done this without having prepared and without having large production capacity. So this is exactly why production capacity is so important. So taking this into account, along with Mike saying that the total addressable market for Novo Nordisk in terms of obesity and diabetes will soon be more than 2 billion people. So obviously these companies need huge amounts of production capacity to meet this demand, and we're seeing Novo Nordisk still spending large amounts of money. Now they do say that the capital expenditure investments are expected to decline soon as they start being able to meet this large demand. So with this huge total addressable market, it is important that Novo Nordisk continue to spend large amounts of money on expanding their production capacity, and they're doing this. The next link in the value creation process for Novo Nordisk is them being able to expand the global obesity market. Let's take a look on what I found in the report in terms of this. We already went over management saying that obesity sales grew by 31%, and we still see here 2% of the total addressable market is receiving treatment. Now, Novo Nordisk is bringing in $80 billion in revenue in terms of obesity from around 3 billion people globally. Imagine what happens when they serve 30 million people. Imagine what happens when they serve 100 million people. So these numbers are going to keep increasing. Novo Nordisk are doing great in terms of expanding their impact and their reach in terms of global obesity market. They say here, in 2025, our obesity portfolio delivered 31% sales growth at constant exchange rates, reaching 3.6 million people worldwide. So 3.6 million people out of 1 billion people is such a low part and such a low percentage of the total addressable market, right? They still have so much market to grow into. Saying here in terms of expanding their footprint on the global market and actually expanding the global obesity market, they say here, we have recently expanded the Wegovy brand with 2 new offerings. Higher dose Wegovy semaglutide 7.2 milligrams, which demonstrated 20.7% weight loss in phase 3 studies, and the Wegovy pill, offering 16.6% weight loss and the convenience of once-day daily oral dosing. So they're expanding the market and making obesity products more available, right, to 3.6 million people, but the total addressable market for obesity is 1 billion people. The total addressable market, as Mike said, is soon going to be 2 billion people for obesity and diabetes, so still such long runway for growth. Here they say by the end of 2025, Wegovy had almost doubled its global footprint to reach 52 countries, with further rollouts planned out in 2026. In the US, the label was expanded to include treatments of adults with MASH, so this liver disease, right? So they've almost doubled their global footprint with Wegovy. So this is huge growth in terms of expanding the obesity market. What we're seeing are not issues related to volume growth, related to reaching more patients with diabetes and obesity, right? What we're seeing in terms of the issue when it comes to the bottom line and their revenue is actually the dollar amount it costs to be treated. So this has been lowered dramatically in 2025 for Novo Nordisk. Based on political things and also just internal things, you have to lower prices with time as you increase your scale. What we can also see is huge growth in terms of total number of patients reached. So in terms of obesity, they're reaching 3.6 million people. But in terms of total global footprint with patients reached for Novo Nordisk, it's still only 45 million people. Overall, we're seeing their total number of patients reached increasing every year. So with this huge total addressable market, with this huge demand, we're still seeing some barriers in terms of getting into treatment. Novo Nordisk are citing price and insurance coverage as barriers. They're saying here that demand for GLP-1 medicines is surging, while access remains limited by uneven insurance coverage, affordability barriers. So what we're seeing are prices and insurance coverage being hurdles. Novo Nordisk decreasing their price might actually be the long-term right step for this. They're dramatically increasing their patient reach while getting less money per patient. This is a short-term headwind. I subscribe to this philosophy, right? In the long term, you will make much more money when you reach the total addressable market. Obviously, there won't be a billion people in treatment, and if there are a billion people in treatment, Novo Nordisk will have to share this market with Lilly. They'll have to share it with all these other custom companies getting into obesity, right? I think it's fair to assume that around 100 million people are going to be in treatment for obesity soon. Novo Nordisk can realistically take 30-40% of this. So this is a 10x on their current patient reach, but 30 million is quite conservative when you think of the total addressable market, when you think of all the side effects of obesity, when you think of the way that obesity market is actually going. What I'm basically trying to get at here is the total addressable market for Novo Nordisk is immense. Although they want to get all the market share, them being one of the biggest players and having such huge production capacity, which I mentioned previously being a huge and important part in terms of driving a pharma company, they can serve so many customers. Also, they have such a wide variety of products, right? They have so many different treatments. They have so many different ways that you can be treated for obesity, for diabetes. With this growing market share, Novo Nordisk will be able to take more of the market when they're citing that prices and insurance coverage are barriers. Them lowering the prices will make the products more available, both through people getting them through their own direct sales channels and also people getting it through their insurance, right? So insurance will cover it more. So they're getting access to so many more patients. So they're saying themselves here, lower realized prices linked to investments in market access. These are short-term headwinds, as Mike said, right? So the company is facing short-term headwinds, pricing and competition being one of it, but they're addressing them. They're actively addressing them, which means a short-term hit to their guidance. 2026 is a year of transition. 2026 is a year of recovery, gaining back that lost market share, right? So they're doing that with their lowered pricing. Investing so heavily into production allows them to lower pricing because they have huge scale. So with scale, you can collapse the cost of the unit production, right? This is financials 101, and they're succeeding with both of these things. So they're addressing and tackling their issues head on, and I love to see this. Obviously, I don't like to see the lowered guidance, but I can accept it because I know that it's the necessary step to take. They used to have all the market share, and now they have competition. Now there's an alternative. Now there's other ways people can be treated, so them lowering their prices actually does tackle this head on. Now, before we continue, I would like to play you a clip of Mike actually addressing this, saying that the fundamental development for the company in terms of volume is increasing. Let's hear what he has to say.
We have always been financial disciplined, and last year we unfortunately had to say goodbye to 9,000 colleagues, mainly because we had foreseen the headwind coming towards us. But having said that, while today you see a negative growth on the financial numbers, I see a lot of positive growth on the other sides of the business. More than ever before, this year we will be producing products. More than ever before. More than ever before, we will be having added patients to our portfolio this year. More than ever before, we will be accelerating and growing our pipeline. So there's a lot of growth into the business that allows us, of course, to continue the investment.
So the dollar amount that they get in from the customer is decreasing, while the amount of customers they're able to serve now with these lower prices, with their increased production capacity, with the pill being easier access, is actually increasing. And over time, we're gonna see Novo Nordisk free cash flow following this amount of patients, right? As they're able to serve more patients. There have been huge barriers to entry for patients in this market, which they're addressing, and investors are puking and vomiting over this. While I think this is something that in the long term will create huge value for Novo. The third value creation process for Novo Nordisk is them being able to succeed on their pipeline. Now, obviously, the pill and the launch of the Wegovy pill is a manifestation of this. The launch of the Wegovy pill is a manifestation of all three value creation processes playing in tandem with each other. So them being able to improve their production capacity leads them to being able to serve the demand to a certain degree, right? Demand is immense. And they're able to expand the global obesity market, not just for Novo Nordisk, but they're making the market more available with the pill. They're proving this. And finally, they're succeeding on their pipeline. The Wegovy pill is a great example of them succeeding on their pipeline. Now, I think there are other YouTubers out there better able to explain the Novo Nordisk pipeline in terms of pharmaceutical aspects and medicine aspects, right? But I'll just take some highlights from this year and I'll show you how they're succeeding on their pipeline and why they have such long runway for growth. So just looking at this, we can see that key R&D developments in the quarter include phase 2 trials on zenagamtide, previously amycretin. So this is a different way of losing weight, which impacts your body in a different way from semaglutide, right? It's a completely different molecule, which makes you process and think about food completely differently, showing significant weight loss and HbA reduction. So this is the glucose, right? In type 2 diabetes, and the phase 3 trial with CagriSema. So this is their next gen. When Wegovy goes off patent, they will have CagriSema ready, and they will have increased sales and market share with CagriSema because it's such a good product, right? With 22.7% weight loss. Within obesity, Novo Nordisk has submitted semaglutide 7.2 milligram and the next generation CagriSema to the FDA. So they're actually awaiting their next generation to get approval. So they're solving and they're addressing their challenges head on. They're succeeding with their pipeline. We're seeing this with the launch of the Wegovy pill. We're seeing this with the incredible weight loss and the good balance in terms of side effects with CagriSema. And in general, right, it's all about the weight loss balanced out with the side effects. So it needs to be a balancing thing. And Novo Nordisk have been great at doing this for over 100 years, right? They and Eli Lilly have done this for 100 years. This is not new to them. So we're seeing Novo Nordisk succeeding on improving their production capacity. We're seeing them improving when it comes to increasing their global reach in terms of patients in obesity, and we're seeing them succeeding on their pipeline, investing heavily into research and development. They're investing constantly into research and development. They're deeply intertwined with Danish and European intellectual institutions. So their future is fine. Novo Nordisk value creation is fine. When it comes to this pill, a lot of people are saying that Eli Lilly will come out with their pill soon and they'll just take back all the market share. Now I'm going to play you a clip with CEO Mike talking about this and addressing this.
Within the field of obesity, the magnitude of the weight loss matters. We have a pill that basically reduces your weight by 16.6%. Let's round that up to 17%. Our competitor is bringing a pill that does 12%. So this is a big difference, 16 versus 12.
So the weight loss efficacy on the Wegovy pill is better than the Eli Lilly pill. Now, obviously, I have been someone who said this for a long time, but it's not just about the weight loss. Ease is important, and also the side effect is important, which is something that can be up for debate in the future. But regardless, Novo Nordisk has the product with the better efficacy, and they're succeeding with all these three things. So all in all, obviously, I do not like the decreased guidance. I do not like the sales outlook for 2026, but I do like what they represent. They're representing a company fundamentally focused on increasing their scale. They're reflecting a company focused on improving access and making access to global obesity market easier, right? So they're tackling their issues head on. They're succeeding with all these three value creation processes while improving their patient outreach. So these have been my 2 cents on the Novo Nordisk 2025 earnings. The shares are down a lot and I'm not panicking. I am still just following these value creation processes for the company, looking at them in terms of gauging whether the company is producing value. The stock is just a short-term expression of the cash flows and the value of the cash flows in relation to the market. Now, the market is very short-term thinking, but if you watch this video, I'm sure that I've probably convinced you that you have to think a lot longer term. This is a year of restructuring. This is a year in investment in global market accessibility. So thank you for watching. I hope this video will help you if you're panicking with Novo Nordisk. It has to be said that this is not investment advice. I work for NewDeal Invest, but they have not approved of this content. Now, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.